Michael Pantalone, Louis Vuitton.
I'd like to thank the government, Mr. Minister, for introducing Bill C-32 and showing the courage to do so in these difficult political and economic times. And I think by all accounts, as you've said over and over again, it really is a balanced attempt to merge the interests of creators and their rights with the interests of Canadian consumers. So I'd like to thank the government.
Thank you.
My question, though, is on the trademark side. Some might say that the copyright bill and copyright reform was the more difficult political animal to deal with. When is the government going to amend the criminal code to add counterfeiting and piracy as a crime in Canada? When is the government going to amend the Trademarks Act to add counterfeiting as a defined term as an offense under the Trademarks Act? And most importantly, when is the government going to give customs the ability to ex officio seize counterfeit and pirated goods at the border, our border being one of the leakiest in the world?
I'm surprised this question is coming from Louis Vuitton. Yeah, well, look, we are making piracy illegal in our copyright legislation. That is clearly was a defined goal of the creative community and all Canadians as we did our consultations. With regard to trademark legislation, that's under the guise of the Minister of Justice, and I frankly don't know what plans he has on that, but I'm sure you'll not be shy in expressing your views on that, and I'll be glad to pass on your message. And you know, with all the fake product out there that pretends to be yours, I can understand why you would be concerned about that. With regard to the legislation, we really did try to strike balance with this legislation, and you'll notice that I think we're now 3 weeks into the public consideration of the legislation that we've tabled. There's been a lot of commentary out there on this online, in the media and elsewhere, and I think the response that we're getting back is generally a sense that that is the case. There are the only people who are opposed to this legislation are really two groups of radical extremists. And in the continuum of political ideology, if you go really extreme to the right and really extreme to the left, it actually circles back around. That's sort of where we are. There are those who pretend to be in favor of copyright reform, but they don't believe in actual copyright reform. There are those who are cited as experts by the media, endlessly, who are not in favor of copyright reform. They favor only weakening legislation and only in gutting tools that would allow those who are actually investing into creating jobs to be able to continue to have their jobs. And some of these people I think are given far too much voice. And I think if you look at this balance, anybody who's truly objective looks at this legislation will realize that everybody has a little bit of water in their wine with this legislation because it requires that kind of balance. When we started off our copyright proposal, I can tell you, the Prime Minister said, this is, he was a staffer back in the early 1980s under Brian Mulroney's government, and he said, since then until now, this has been an ongoing issue. And he said, good luck with that, because there are people with such dug-in interests. And I think with this legislation, if you don't have an absolutist view, if you are actually open-minded and you want to make sure that the whole of Canada's creative economy can move forward, then I think you can strike a right balance, and I think that this legislation does that. But don't let those, some of them who are out there who get cited, as I say, endlessly by the media, who pretend to be experts on copyright reform, who put a smiley, shiny, cute face on what is actually a pretty disingenuous campaign to undermine the rights, the property rights of individual citizens to invest in their creative goods. And that's what a lot of people do. And we ought not listen to those voices. And if they do speak up, we need to confront them.